something changed. Not in the world, not in the system, but in you. There was a moment, quiet, unannounced, where time slowed down, the noise faded, and all that remained was you. In the aftermath, the players who once stood with you are gone. The moves that once made sense now feel meaningless. In the game you fought so hard to survive, it's just a graveyard now. But maybe that's where it begins. Not with the winners, not with the noise, but with the ones left standing. In the silence, watch this video till the end. It might not give you answers, but it will help you hear your own. And if it speaks to you, subscribe and like. This voice is yours. There comes a moment, maybe once in a lifetime, when everything just stops. The noise, the chase, pressure to perform, to belong, to move faster than you're ready to. All of it suddenly freezes. You're left sitting in a silence that feels unfamiliar, even hostile. At first you call it bad luck, a setback, life getting in the way. But deep down you know the truth. It's not the world that hit pause. It's you who stopped showing up. You blame the clock. Say you ran out of time. Say you were waiting for the right moment. That was never the problem, was it? Time didn't betray you? Time was always neutral. You were just too scared to move when it was still ticking, because movement means exposure, action means risk. Becoming something more means letting go of what you used to be, and that's terrifying. So you wrapped yourself in excuses. Said you weren't ready. Said people like you don't make it. Said the timing wasn't right. But now, here you are. And there's no more noise to hide behind. No race to distract you. Just you. And the mirror that silence holds up, and in that stillness, you finally see it. You weren't waiting for time. You were waiting for permission. Permission to speak up, to change, to disappoint others, to become someone they wouldn't recognize. But here's the truth that hurts before. It heals. You were always allowed. You just didn't think you deserved it. So now in this moment of pause, in this breath between what was and what could be, you face the hardest truth of all. You were the one standing in your own way. Not time, not fate, not them. Just you. And it's okay to admit that, because you can't change what you won't confront. You can't grow from what you keep denying. So maybe this silence isn't punishment. Maybe it's a gift. A brutal, honest moment where you get to reclaim what you gave away. Because when time stops, the excuses go quiet. And underneath them, there you are, raw, unfiltered, unprotected by distractions. You still have fears. You still have wounds. But now finally you can see them clearly. And if you can see them, you can face them. If you can face them, you can move. Not because the clock started ticking again, but because you did. You don't need more time. You just need to stop running from the one person who can change your life, the one in the mirror. And in this moment, this breath, this silence, you get to decide, will you keep waiting or will you begin? You don't notice the emptiness right away. At first, it just feels like things are quieter. Fewer texts, fewer names showing up, less noise, less pressure, less everything. Then the silence starts to echo. And that echo, it feels like abandonment. You start questioning yourself. Did I do something wrong? Was I not enough? Why does it feel like everyone left when I needed someone to stay? It's a heavy place to be, because you thought they'd be there. You thought the ones who clapped for you at your best would sit beside you at your lowest, but that's not how it played out. And now you're here looking around at the space they left behind, wondering if it means you failed, if the silence is punishment, if the emptiness is a sign that something inside you has broken beyond repair. But that's not what this is. This isn't punishment. It's a reset. You were so surrounded, so entangled in the expectations and distractions that you lost sight of your own direction. You kept playing a game that wasn't even yours anymore, following rules made by people who never had to live with the consequences. So when the players disappeared, when the game fell quiet, what was really taken from you? Their presence or your dependence on it? Because here's what most people never admit. When the noise fades, it hurts. But it also reveals you begin to see what you never could in the chaos. Your own thoughts, your own instincts, your own needs, unfiltered, unedited, and maybe for the first time, you realize you've been living crowded, not just with people, but with versions of yourself that were shaped by survival. You became who you needed to be for others. Now, you get to become who you actually are. That's what the emptiness is giving you. Space to rebuild, to remove what's not yours, to reset the game, this time with your rules, your standards. Your voice, it's not easy, it's not romantic, it's raw, it's painful, and it will make you doubt everything, till the day you do. Until one day you stop grieving who left and start becoming who stayed. And that person, the one still here, still breathing, still showing up in the silence, that's the version of you that doesn't need validation to move, that doesn't need a crowd to be powerful, doesn't need noise to feel alive. The emptiness didn't break you. It introduced you to you, and that is not a curse. That is the beginning. It doesn't come with a scream. It comes quietly. Late at night when things slow down, when the world forgets you exist, that's when it shows up. The weight, the ache you can't name, the tightness in your chest that won't leave. And you don't know why, because everything looks fine on the outside. You survived. You moved on. You built a life. So why does it still feel like something's following you? You call it overthinking. You tell yourself it's just stress. But deep down, you know better. You're not haunted by memories. You're haunted by decisions. It's not what happened that keeps you up at night. It's what you let happen. What you didn't say when you had the chance. The moments you backed down, even though everything in you screamed to stand up. The times you betrayed yourself just to keep the peace. And now that peace feels like prison, you try to forget it. Distract yourself. Convince yourself it's in the past. But ghosts don't care about time. They stay. Until you face them. You carry them in your silence. In the way you flinch when someone raises their voice. In the way you shrink when you're supposed to shine. In the way you walk away from things you still want. Just because you're afraid to want to loudly again, these ghosts don't live in the places you left. They live inside the parts of you that still don't feel whole. And that's the truth no one tells you about healing. You don't move on just by walking away. You move on by going back, not to the people, not to the pain, but to the choice. The choice where you abandoned yourself. The moment where you stopped choosing what was true for you, started choosing what was easier for them. You can't undo the past, but you can confront the part of you that still feels stuck there, because that part, it's waiting. Waiting for you to come back and say what you never said, to feel what you pushed down, to make peace not with the outcome but with yourself. You don't need to rewrite the story. You just need to stop pretending that ghost doesn't exist. Because once you acknowledge it, once you admit that it still hurts, it still echoes, that it still matters, that's when it begins to fade. Not because it's gone, but because you are finally present. You don't have to carry that version of you forever. You just have to stop leaving them behind. You're not haunted by your past. You're haunted by the parts of yourself that still don't believe you deserved better. And now, you get to choose differently. Some days, even breathing feels like a fight. You wake up and it's already heavy. Not because something bad just happened, but because so much already has. You carry it quietly, without asking anyone to understand. Because deep down, you've learned not everyone can. You've lost count of how many times you've tried. How many things you've given your heart to, only to watch them fall apart. And the worst part, it's not the failure. It's the fact that you believed it would work this time. You hoped, that now that hope feels like a weapon you turned on. Yourself. You walk through the wreckage of your own effort. Plans that didn't make it. People who didn't stay. Pieces of you that you can't even explain anymore. And in that place, no one's clapping. No one's cheering. There's no spotlight. It's just silence. But here you are, still standing, not winning, not celebrated. But here in that, that's a kind of strength most people will never understand, because it takes something unshakable to keep showing up when the world tells you there's no reason to. To keep existing with intent, even when everything you once built has turned to dust. To get out of bed knowing you might get knocked down again, but getting up anyway. People talk about strength like it's a performance. Loud, proud, victorious. But the real kind, it's quiet. It's unseen. It's in the moments no one else witnesses when you keep going. Not because you're sure you'll make it, but because you refuse to disappear. You don't need to win every battle. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not collapse, not give in, not vanish into the silence that tried to erase you. Because every time you stay standing in grief, in loss, in fear, you're defying everything that said you couldn't. You're telling the world. And more importantly, telling yourself, I'm still here. And maybe that's not flashy. Maybe that doesn't earn applause. But it builds something. Something solid. Something real. A foundation. One that doesn't crumble the next time life tries to break you, because you've already been broken. You've already bled. You've already heard the silence and stood inside it without running. That's not weakness. That's not survival. That's power, and the world may never notice, but you will. And that's enough. Because strength was never about how loud you roared. It was always about how long you stayed standing, when everything else fell. You've seen the loud ones. The ones who scream their strength, who perform their power like it's a stage show. But you've been quiet. Not because you're weak, not because you're scared, but because you've been surviving. And that's not the kind of thing you shout about. That's the kind of thing you live through. Quietly, constantly. There were nights you didn't think you'd make it. You kept walking, even when every step felt like dragging a dead weight. You didn't break the room apart, didn't cry out for sympathy, didn't post about your suffering like it was a badge. You just kept showing up. And no one clapped for that. No one called it heroic. But it was, because real power doesn't crash into a room, stay standing after the room falls apart. You've been in situations where everything cracked, people left, your plans failed, the ground you trusted gave way beneath you. And in those moments, you didn't have speeches. You didn't have strength to explain anything to anyone. But somehow, you were still breathing. You were still there. And that's where power lives. Not in the storm, but in the silence after it. You didn't yell when they underestimated you. You didn't fight when they betrayed you. You watched the collapse, and you didn't crumble with it. That takes a different kind of strength. One they'll never see, because they only recognize noise. But you weren't made to impress them. You were made to endure. People think strength is in lifting others, in fixing everything, winning battles with dramatic gestures. But you've learned the truth. Sometimes strength is simply in not folding. You sat with the pain. You stayed when others left. You faced a version of yourself you didn't recognize. Tired, broken, disconnected, and you didn't run. You met yourself in that dark place and refused to disappear. That's not weakness. That's not failure. It's unshakable. And maybe no one saw that moment. Maybe no one ever will. But you were there, and you know what it took. You're not here because things were easy. You're here because even when you could have snapped, screamed, collapsed, you chose to hold. Even when you didn't know what was next, you didn't let the chaos define you. That's power, not the kind that demands attention. The kind that survives collapse. The kind that holds its ground when nothing else can. The kind that walks through hell and comes out. Not louder, not angrier, but still standing. And if you're still breathing, still here, still holding your own weight after everything life threw at you, then you don't need to prove anything. Because power like yours doesn't need to be seen. It just needs to exist. There's a moment where everything goes quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. The kind that follows destruction. No more noise. No more movement. Just the wreckage and you sitting in the middle of it. And that's when it hits you. There's nothing left to protect. No role to play. No mask to hold. No one left to impress. Only you. Raw, unfiltered, real. You can feel it deep in your chest that this isn't just another bad day. This is the bottom. The point where things stop falling, because there's nowhere left to fall. And it's terrifying. You look around for something to hold on to, but everything's gone, so your mind starts running. You try to bargain. You try to deny. You try to reach back up to the version of life that made sense. But the truth stands still. And in that stillness, a mirror appears. Not the kind you pass in the hallway without thinking. No, this one's brutal. It shows you the person you've been avoiding for years, the fear behind the confidence, the resentment buried under the smile, the weakness behind the strength you always performed, and it doesn't blink. That mirror doesn't lie. It doesn't flatter. It shows you exactly what broke, how much of it was already cracked before you ever hit the ground. This is the part where most people want to escape, where they reach for a distraction, a shortcut, another lie to soften the blow. But you, if you have the courage to keep looking, something shifts. Because buried beneath the broken pieces, there's something else, a version of you that never got to speak, the part of you that was too real for this world, too honest, too vulnerable, too true. And now, in this silence, you can hear it. The voice that says, this isn't the end. This is the start. This isn't your punishment. It's your awakening. Rock bottom is brutal, but it's also sacred. Because when life takes everything, it also gives you something back. Yourself. Not the image, not the brand, not the role. You, the one who's been buried under expectations, performance, and fear. And now, you face them all. Not to destroy them, but to finally understand who you are without them. That's what this place is. It's not hell. It's the truth, unfiltered. And when you walk out of it, you don't come out polished. You come out real. And that kind of strength doesn't need to be loud, just needs to be true. You don't rise because you feel strong. You rise because something inside you refuses to stay buried. That ache in your chest, that's not defeat. That's the part of you that's still alive. You've been sitting in the same place for too long. Not just physically, but emotionally, mentally. You've stared at the same four walls in your mind, replayed the same pain, wondered if this is just how it ends, and no one sees it. They think because you're quiet, you're fine. They don't see what it costs you just to hold yourself together when everything inside you is falling apart. And at some point, it stops being about healing. It stops being about getting better or fixing things. You get tired of waiting for some magical shift where things finally make sense. You stop needing the pain to go away. ... You just need to move. Not to prove anything. Not to win. But because staying still is starting to feel like dying slowly, so you stand up. Maybe your hands still shake. Maybe your heart still hurts. Your legs move anyway. You don't rise like a warrior. You rise like a survivor. Quietly, reluctantly, but you rise. And for the first time, it's not about pretending you're okay. It's not about posting something inspiring or making others proud. It's about reclaiming something. Not your confidence, not your smile, but your momentum. You may not know where you're going, but you know you can't stay here. You don't need a destination right now. You just need direction forward, because what's behind you? That version of you that kept waiting. That version that kept hoping someone would come fix it. That version that tried to make the pain smaller just to make others comfortable. You're done with that. Done minimizing your storm just because no one else knows how to weather it. Done apologizing for carrying wounds they can't see. This rise, it isn't glamorous. It doesn't come with applause. There's no victory music. Just breath. Just steps. Just one more second where you're not lying on the floor, and that's enough. Not because it solves everything, but because it starts something. You're not here to impress anyone. You're not even here to prove yourself anymore. You're here because something in you finally snapped and said, I can't live in this pause forever. So maybe you're not healed. Maybe you're still broken. But you're moving, and that means you're not done yet. It's not by a long shot. You stopped talking, stopped explaining, stopped trying to make them understand what it felt like to break. Quietly, and they mistook that silence for surrender. They saw your stillness and thought it meant you had nothing left, that you were finally done fighting. But what they never saw, what no one ever really sees, is the storm that begins when the noise stops. Because you weren't retreating yet. You were returning to yourself. not to collapse, but to collect what was left, to gather the parts of you that were scattered after everything they took, everything they questioned, everything they never stayed long enough to understand. See, silence isn't absence. It's a preparation. It's the pause before a new voice is born. Not louder, not angrier, but clearer. Because when you stop trying to prove your pain, when you stop screaming into rooms that only echo with indifference, something shifts. You start hearing things again. The sound of your own breath, the weight of your own thoughts. And they're not all kind. Some of them hurt more than the silence ever could. But they're honest. They're yours. And for once, you're not filtering yourself to survive someone else's comfort. In that silence, you begin to ask better questions. Not why me, but what now? Not how could they, but what did I learn? And that's when it starts. Not the revenge, not the fantasy of proving them all wrong. The rebuilding. Quiet, slow, relentless. You begin to move differently. Not to be seen, but to see. Not to be praised, but to be aligned. Every step forward is no longer about proving your worth to anyone else. It's about proving to yourself that you never lost it. They might not recognize the version of you. That rises next. Because this time, you're not coming back with explanations or apologies. You're not carrying the weight of their doubts anymore. You're not interested in fitting back into the life that broke you. You're here to create something that couldn't have been born if you didn't first fall into silence. So no, this was never the end. It was never the moment you gave up. It was the moment